Okay. Hello and good morning to everyone. This morning, I'd like to welcome you to our group's debate, where we will be focusing on Fomasian virtues. And this house agrees with Thomas Aquinas' natural law. Additionally, the style of debate that we will be using today is the modified Oregon Oxford. I am Isabella Bordo, the secretary of the debate, and the judge will be Aimel Saige. Representing the affirmative side are its speakers, Kristen Langsang, the first speaker, Lance Rivera, the second speaker, and Andrea Marquez, the third speaker. On the opposing team, we have Lemuel Morelos, the first speaker, Lance Elioso, the second speaker, and Bernard Almachar, the third speaker. Before this debate starts, I would like to remind everyone that this debate lasts for only 30 minutes, which means that each member from the proposition and opposition side have a maximum of 3 minutes to give their statement and 2 minutes to deliver their rebuttal. After they give their speech, the secretary will tell them the time they have consumed, and if they have exceeded the time limit, then the secretary has the right to stop them and proceed on to the next speaker. I shall now call upon the first speaker to present the affirmative case. Your 3 minutes start now.
So the House believes on Thomas Sands, the natural law. Thomas, as a Christian and a philosopher, felt that he had to have evidence for his beliefs. So he first set up arguments on the existence of God, arguments from motion, causation, contingency, and degrees. These arguments, in its essence, denies the existence of infinite regress, in which a proposition requires the existence of another proposition before it, and that proposition requiring another, and so on ad infinitum. It is an argument that involves depending upon itself for its own explanation. So, Thomas' arguments claim that there has to be a first unmoved mover of motion, the first uncaused causer of cause, the first contingent in which existence has started, and a perfect existence in which degrees of perfection could be measured to which is which is in this case is God. So Aquinas also establishes that God did not only create the world but is intimately involved in it, not interfering in the world like a puppet master but as a guide. The way that God helps us is to lead us in our flourishing without interfering by giving us our instincts. Instincts, or a creature's inclination toward what is good for them, is dubbed by Aquinas as a sharing in God's eternal law, or having the wisdom of God ingrained upon themselves. So separate yet interconnected to that is the natural law. It is what Aquinas calls the humans participating in God's eternal law. And like other animals, humans have this drive to do what is good for them. Aquinas taught that humans partake in the eternal law perfectly because, unlike other animals, we humans have the inclination to recognize what is good and reason to know how to pursue it correctly. Aquinas' first precept of natural law is to avoid evil and do good. The following derived from our other natural instincts that separates us from other animals. So the instinct to preserve individual life, or to not kill or harm one another, to preserve species, to care for and educate offspring, and to allow them to seek God, and to want to know truth, to not lie and to shun ignorance, to want to live in a society, to not offend and not to steal, or simply to not do what you don't want others to do unto you. That is Aquinas' stance on natural law. Uh, that is all.
Thank you. The time consumed is 2 minutes and 35 seconds. I shall now call on the first opposition speaker to deliver their speech. Your
Um,
3 minutes
hi,
starts now.
my name is Lemuel Morelos, and I am the first speaker for the negative debate for the opposition side. According to Thomas Aquinas, the foundation of the natural law is that good to be done and evil avoided, and that all humans are bound by the law of the natural law because of the divine providence and authoritative by the nature of of its norms. Now, we as today's opposition strongly believe that Thomas Aquinas' theory of natural law is flawed by these two following points. First, the natural law and the involvement of the divine providence. And second is the natural law and the human of or practical rationality. First, the natural law and the involvement of the divine providence. One of Thomas Aquinas' fundamental of natural law stated that natural law is participation in the eternal law, meaning what we did and do has already been written or already planned by God. The reason why we're opposing this motion is that the definition of good of Thomas Aquinas is that as long as you're fulfilling a purpose or a plan, which is very subjective considering good is doing a purpose or a plan, that it can be manipulated and misinterpreted by humans. Now, going back to the eternal law, what is my argument here? My point here is that what if our beliefs are different and have different teachings on what is good and bad, defined by who we are believing, which means that natural law and the divine providence is flawed. My last point is that the natural law and human or practical rationality. Moving on to the human view. According to Thomas Aquinas is that if we act reasonably or what is right or good for both of us taking part in the natural law. Same argument here as the first one. Thomas Aquinas rejects the thought of context or relativism. Based on my research and my findings on the theory of Thomas Aquinas the natural law, reasoning of humans, and the eternal law to do good and avoid evil are all connected. What if a life were threatened to be taken away by another's hands, but by human nature defends and kills the oppressor? Does that mean that the person failed to do good even though it is rational? That will be all. Thank you.
Thank you for presenting the opposition team's side of the argument. The time consumed is 2 minutes and 40 seconds. I shall now call upon the second affirmative speaker to present their speech. Your 3 minute starts now.
Good morning. My name is Lance Rivera, and I'm the second affirmative speaker. Natural law is composed of certain eternal law precepts that regulate the actions of people that have reason and free will. According to Aquinas, the first precept of natural law is the very absurd imperative to do good and stop bad. It is worth noting here that Aquinas has a moral philosophy of natural law. According to Aquinas, what is good and bad is extracted from the logical essence of human beings. Consequently, good and bad are both factual and fundamental. But Aquinas is also a common law legal theorist. In his view, human law, for example, that promulgated by human beings, is only valid in so much as its substance conforms to the content of natural law. As Aquinas points out, every human law has just as much of the spirit of the law as it derives from the law of nature. But if it deviates from the rule of nature at some point, it is no longer a law but a perversion of the law. The unfair law is, to paraphrase Augustine's famous statement, no law at all. The belief that a norm does The belief that the belief that a norm that does not align with natural law cannot be constitutionally legitimate is a defining thesis in a philosophical naturalism. As William Blackstone explains the study, this rule of nature, being coeval with humanity and determined by God Himself, is of course more binding than any other. It is binding in the world, in all nations, and at all times. No human rule is legitimate whether it is contrary to it, and all its power and all its legitimacy, whether mediately or instantly, derives from that original. In this passage, Blackstone articulates the two claims that form the normative foundation of philosophical naturalism. There can be no constitutionally legitimate rules that clash with natural law, and all valid laws derive from natural law, the power and authority they have. It should be remembered that classical naturalism is associated with enabling human beings to play a major part in the creation of legislation, while the classic naturalist appears committed to the claim that the law inevitably encompasses all moral values. This claim does not mean that the law is exhausted by a collection of moral principles. There will also be alignment challenges, which side of the path to follow, that can be overcome in any variety of ways that are compatible with the collection of moral standards. Thus, the classical naturalist does not dispute that human beings have tremendous discretion in the development of natural law. Rather, it argues that such discretion is inherently restricted by moral standards. The legal norms that are promulgated by human beings are legitimate only if they are compatible with morals. That's all.
Thank you. You have consumed 2 minutes and 57 seconds. Um, I shall now call on the second opposition speaker to deliver their speech. Your 3 minutes
Hi,
start.
I'm Lance Olioso, the second opposition speaker. There were a lot of theories that revolve around the society full of deep questions and mysteries. Philosophers wanted to answer to satisfy their curiosity on how the world works and how it should work. One of the most knowledgeable theories that survived through medieval times was the natural law due to the Roman Catholic Church spreading its philosophy that is linked to God's words. The natural law was a great foundation to bring more questions and one by one be answered, one step at a time to understanding society. However, as we draw the end of the line, its flaws were discovered. First, the natural law has a fixed perspective on human nature that it did not consider the different kinds of human nature. There is no one human nature that can be considered because in essence, are all built differently. Second, the natural law provided an optimistic view that regards human that innately do good and avoid evil, which is in contrast to human history that disregards the value of life in war and other selfish acts that destroy different species. Nature in order to preserve their own needs. Next. The third one is the natural law revolves around the law written by nature or by God. This might be applicable in the past, but by further research with modern technology analysis has been found that there is only a cause and effect in the natural world. Additionally, natural law is prominent today due to the teachings of the Catholic Church, as I stated, that has been the bridge to medieval past to today. It is mostly based on the rationality of faith. Next is, there were a lot of variables needed to consider in order to fully understand the law in which the society developed. The natural law took the approach to be optimistic and simplistic to comprehend such. Lastly, the laws and nature of human varies over time, wherein there will be a point that natural law will be rendered irrelevant. For example, as time goes by, there will be new laws enacted by humans that would contradict natural law. In conclusion, Thomas Aquinas on the approach of the natural law is flawed due to its inherent nature to see the good in humans without considering the sins of humanity. And that's the end of my speech. Thank you.
Thank you. You have consumed 1 minute and 57 seconds. I shall now call on the third affirmative speaker to deliver the last speech supporting the case.
Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Andrea Marquez, third affirmative speaker. The topic of our debate revolves around St. Thomas Aquinas' natural law. We, the affirmative team, stand for the Aquinas' jury in the debate. Our first speaker introduced what's comprised of the theory of Aquinas. He stated the interconnectedness of God's eternal law with the civil law, saying therefore that the instincts of human beings, in line with what's good for them, is in general part of the whole of God's creation that comes with us in a form of will and inclination. Our second speaker supported the claim through the standpoint of the eternal law precepts. that comes with the natural law, including the fundamentals and factuality of both good and bad. Moreover, it was also stated the common law legal theories side of Aquinas, where it was pointed out that every human law is a derivative of the law of nature. On the other hand, the first negative speaker has pointed out more of the subjectivity of Thomas Aquinas' definition of in line with one of the fundamentals of natural law, thus the eternal law. Additionally, the second point mentioned was about the natural law and the human reason, bringing in the concept of rationality in terms of good and avoiding evil. My position for this matter is being said as good in the theory is not a matter of fatalism or dismissing the validity of our decision, but rather it is coming from a deterministic context, whereby in our action of deciding we are determined by something before so, thus coming from a form of free will. What is designed that is designed to come with rationality, but in a bigger picture, integrated with God's wisdom. The second negative speaker have pointed out that the theory's approach of the natural law is flawed because of the inherent nature to see the good in humans without consideration of the sins of humanity. My position for this matter is that the theory is not a point of looking for good and bad of humanity, but a point of transcending the duality and being able to use rationality in sync with the eternal law. According to this text, the order of the universe is fundamentally rational. Human rationality, therefore, is a person's innate moral compass, thus going beyond cause and effect, in this case guided by the eternal law, which suggests to use rationality being in harmony with the universe, not a master, but a guide according to our first speaker. That would be all. Thank you.
Thank you. You have consumed 2 minutes and 39 seconds. Since there is no third opposition speaker, I would like to call on the third affirmative speaker to present the affirmative side's final rebuttal. Your 2 minutes starts now.
In opposition to the negative side, I would like to further note that in the many years where majority believes in free will, there is also the concept that free will is an illusion. Furthermore, it doesn't seem to end as just an idea, for according to neurologists such as Sam Harris, our wills are simply not the thoughts and intentions emerge from background causes of which we are unaware and over which we exert no conscious control. We do not have the freedom we think we have. Given that, we can see the weight of Aquinas' theory, where influences, emotions, thoughts are unconsciously making its way to our so-called free will before we even decide things. To back that up, from the view of science, a lot of scientists believe that Benjamin Libet, an American physiologist, showed the point of the non-existence of free will through an experiment during the 1980s, whereby it was discovered that the electrical activity in the brain of a person builds up before our one consciously makes a choice. Moreover, from the view of self, on the idea of influences beyond our control, like from the genes we inherit, the social situation we are in, and the like. In a theological sense, the Jewish have a philosophy which emphasizes that free will is a product of the intrinsic human soul. But the capability to bring about a free choice is through yachida, a part of the soul that is unified or integrated with God, the only being that is not prevented by or dependent on cause and effect. Therefore, this supports the theory whereby free will serves as a means or a guiding tool upon fulfilling God's eternal. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our side on Aquinas' theory of natural law. Thank you.
Thank you. You have consumed 1 minute and 53 seconds. Will there be a rebuttal to from the negative side?
None.
Thank you. So both teams have already addressed all their sides, which signals the end of the debate. Thank you to our audience for listening.